Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. In this session, let us discuss GS Paper 1 of Prelims 2020. But what are we going to do today? We will be looking at all these questions one by one, all the 100 questions. We'll also be providing you with the difficulty level, whether these questions and how many questions were difficult, were easy, were with medium level difficulty. What we have done, we have segregated these questions subject-wise. So first, we will be taking up polity-based questions which were asked, then history, international relations, geography, environment and ecology, so on and so forth. That's number one. Number two, only you know that you have worked very hard. So let's assume for a while, even if you don't clear this exam, don't be disheartened. And let's go back to the same definition of success. Success is a process of going from failure to failure without losing determination, without losing the courage. So don't give up. There are only two types of aspirants. One who persist and the others who give up. Don't give up. And if you don't give up, there is no power on earth that can stop you from clearing this examination. That's another important point. Third point, you may be discussing your answers with your fellow friends or with those who did not appear in this exam or with those who have already cleared this exam. And they may try to bring you down and ridicule you how you were in a position to mark this question wrong. But please understand one thing. It's easier to be wise after the event is over. So it is easier for them to pinpoint your errors. It's easier for them to tell you that this is the right answer to this question. Don't be disheartened. Don't be ridiculed. Only you know that you have worked very hard and you will definitely clear this examination. Something else. What is going to be the expected cutoff in this Prelims 2020? Please trust me when I say this. If by looking at the answer key, if you are scoring 90 plus, beginning tomorrow, start preparing for your mains examination. Please don't wait for the UPSC to declare its official result and then start preparing for your mains examination. If you're scoring 90 plus, please start preparing for the mains examination beginning tomorrow. Another important point. There are various coaching institutes which will tell you that the cutoff will be 105. The cutoff will be 100. The cutoff will be 95. But I don't understand how do they come up with this figure that the cutoff will be 95, 105, 120 even. But what we at BYJU'S IAS are going to do, we will provide you a scientific cutoff. And how do we provide a scientific cutoff? We will conduct an opinion poll. And what is that opinion poll? This lecture will be watched by more than 1 lakh people. More than 1 lakh aspirants who have appeared in this examination. We will ask you, there is a Google form which is attached to the video description below. Click on that Google form and tell us how many marks are you expecting in this prelims examination. And then we will collaborate and collect that data and tell you scientifically what is going to be the expected cutoff in this prelims examination. So all those who have appeared today in the examination, please fill the Google form and tell us what is your expected score by looking at the answer key that we are going to provide. And based on the data that we receive from you, we are going to tell you tomorrow what we expect the cutoff of Prelims 2020 to be. So it is going to be the most scientific way of predicting cutoff for Prelims 2020. Let's look at the first slide. And this is the number of questions which have been asked from different subjects. For example, polity, 17 questions have been asked. Environment and ecology, 10 questions. Science and technology, modern history, 10. Art and culture, 5. Ancient history, 3. Medieval, 2. Geography, 12. Economics, 19. This is the breakup of the questions which the UPSC has thrown at you. Let's look at the polity-based questions first. And there were 17 questions asked in today's prelims examination. Let's look at question number 1. A parliamentary system of government is one which, this is basically a repeat question. Few years ago, UPSC asked, parliamentary democracy means what? Parliamentary democracy basically means that Council of Ministers, which is the government, is accountable to Lok Sabha, which basically means that the government is responsible to the Parliament and can be removed by the Parliament, can be removed by Lok Sabha by passing a no confidence motion, so on and so forth. So the answer to this question is B. This is question number 81, and this belongs to set C of UPSC Prelims 2020. Let's look at another question. Which part of the Constitution of India declares the ideal of a welfare state? Direct question, right from part 4 of the Constitution, direct to principles of state policy. The idea of DPSP is to establish a welfare state. Direct, very easy question. Consider the following statements. The Constitution of India defines its basic structure in terms of federalism, secularism, fundamental rights and democracy. Yes, all these are part of the basic structure. But Constitution, you would know, has not defined basic structure. Basic structure is basically a judicial innovation. And this concept was innovated by the Supreme Court on 24th April 1973 when Keshavananda Bharati judgment was delivered by the Supreme Court. It was because of this judgment that Supreme Court propounded the doctrine of basic structure. That means Constitution does not talk about basic structure. Option statement number 2. The Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberties and to preserve the ideals on which the Constitution is based. In fact, Constitution does not talk about judicial review. Directly, it does not talk about judicial review. But we can trace the concept of judicial review by looking at Article 13 of the Constitution, or by also looking at Article 32 of the Constitution. So Constitution per se does not provide for judicial review. Which of these statements are correct? Neither 1 nor 2. D is the correct answer. In the context of India, which one of the following is the characteristic appropriate for bureaucracy? Now, bureaucracy is part of executive, but we say bureaucracy is part of the permanent executive. And what is the correct answer here? An agency for the implementation of public policy, permanent executive, that's the appropriate characteristic of bureaucracy. 86th question. The preamble of the Constitution of India is, and this is something that we discussed in our first crash course as well, wherein I talked about that preamble question will be asked because it is in the news because of anti-CAA protest. And what is preamble? It is part of the Constitution. That's what Supreme Court has said in Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. But at the same time, it is not enforceable in a court of law. When it is not enforceable in a court of law, then what is the significance of preamble? The significance is that preamble can be used to interpret the laws whose language is ambiguous. That means we have to look at preamble in relation to other parts of the Constitution. So what is the correct answer? A part of the Constitution has no legal effect independently of the other parts. Independently of other parts, it has no legal effect. D is the correct answer to this question. Let's look at something else. With references to the provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution, which of the following statements are correct? Article 37. Article 37 says, directive principles of state policy, they are not enforceable in a court of law. When they are not enforceable in a court of law, nevertheless, it shall be the duty of the state to implement these directive principles of state policy. DPSP. DPSP primarily means what are the principles that the state has to keep in mind while enacting laws, while making policies. So they shall be enforceable by the courts? No. They shall not be enforceable by any court, correct? These principles laid down in this part are to influence the making of laws by the state. This statement is correct. So 2 and 3, D is the correct answer. Consider the following statements. According to the Constitution, a person who is eligible to vote can be made a minister in a state for 6 months, even if he or she is not a member of the legislature of that state. This is where some of you may have made mistake as well, because half of the statement is correct. Even if you are not a member of the legislature, you can still be appointed as a minister. But within 6 months, you have to be elected to either Legislative Assembly or Legislative Council. But the first part of the question is a person who is eligible to vote. Who is eligible to vote? Somebody who is 18 years of above. But this person cannot be appointed as a minister. You have to be 25 plus. So the statement should have been, if the statement was correct, it should have been, according to the Constitution, a person who is eligible to become a member of the State Legislative Assembly. Even if he is not a member, he can be appointed as a minister. So this statement is incorrect. According to Representation of the People Act 1951, a person convicted of a criminal offense and sentenced to imprisonment for 5 years is permanently disqualified from contesting an election even after his release from prison. Once you're released from the prison, for 6 years, you cannot contest election. After that, you can contest the election. So this statement is wrong. Which of the above statements are correct? D. Neither is the correct answer. Let's look at another question. The President of India can summon a session of Parliament at such a place as he or she thinks fit? Yes. The Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions in a year. And my students, they would know, whether you are a tablet student or you are an online classroom student, Constitution does not talk about budget session, monsoon session, winter session. There is only one requirement. Constitution must meet in such a manner that the time gap between the first session and the second session should not be more than 6 months. That's the only constitutional requirement. Normally, we meet thrice a year, budget session, winter session, monsoon session, but these sessions are not mentioned in the Constitution. This statement is wrong. There is no minimum number of days that the Parliament is required to meet in a year. This statement is correct. You can curtail the budget session. You can curtail the monsoon session, which was done recently. So there is no minimum number of days that the Parliament is required to meet in a year. So what is the correct answer? 1 and 3. C is the correct answer. Aadhaar metadata cannot be stored for more than 3 months. Wrong. It can be stored more than that. State cannot enter into any contract with private corporations for sharing of Aadhaar data. Correct. That's based on the ruling of the court. Aadhaar is mandatory for obtaining insurance products. No. Aadhaar is mandatory for getting benefits funded out of the Consolidated Fund of India. Correct. So what is the correct answer? A, 1 and 4. Because the reason Aadhaar was introduced as a money bill, the reason given was that we are withdrawing money from the Consolidated Fund of India. So when we look at 1, it should be B. State cannot enter into contract with private corporations for sharing of Aadhaar data. Correct. Aadhaar is mandatory for getting benefits out of the Consolidated Fund of India. 2 and 4. B is the correct answer. Because the logic was, if you are withdrawing money from Consolidated Fund of India, which makes it a money bill under Article 110 of the Constitution. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with respect to Lok Sabha in the matter of creating All India services. No, this is the exclusive power of the Rajya Sabha. In amending the Constitution, yes. The removal of the government, no. Making cut motions, no. These are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha. This is the exclusive power of Rajya Sabha. So amending the Constitution, because a constitutional amendment bill must be passed by both houses of the Parliament, that too separately, which means there is no concept of joint sitting of both houses of the Parliament. With reference to the funds under MP LAD scheme, MP LAD was in the news. We have discussed it repeatedly. MP LAD funds must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health, education, etc. Correct. A specified portion of each MP's fund must benefit SC/ST population. Correct. MP-led funds are sanctioned on yearly basis and the unused funds cannot be carried forward to the next year. And this, if you recall, we discussed that these are basically non-lapsable funds. They don't lapse even if you are not using these funds. The district authority must inspect at least 10% of all works under the implementation every year. And this is according to Rule 6.4 of the MP-led scheme released by Program Implementation Ministry. So 1, 2, 4 is the correct answer. D is the answer to this question. Which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporates protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination? It comes under Article 17, and you would know Article 14 to Article 18 comes under the category of right to equality. Simple question. Nobody would have marked this incorrect. In India, separation of judiciary from executive is enjoined by Directive Principle of State Policy. It comes under Article 50 of the Constitution of India. Because in our parliamentary form of democracy, there can be no separation of powers between the legislature and the executive. Because in a parliamentary democracy, executive is drawn from the legislature. But there is a separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary. And where is it mentioned? DPSPs under Article 50 of the Constitution. Along with the budget, the finance minister also places other documents before the parliament, which include the macroeconomic framework statement. But who mandates this? And the answer is FRBM Act of the year 2003. A constitutional government by definition is, and this I'm sure none of my students would have marked this incorrect. Constitutional government primarily means that there is this emergence of the doctrine of limited government. When we say the doctrine of limited government, that means the powers available with the state are not unlimited. There is a limitation imposed on the powers of the state. And who has imposed these limitations? The Constitution itself. So the constitutional government by definition is a government of limited powers or a limited government. D is the correct answer. Other than fundamental rights, which of the following parts of the Constitution of India reflect or reflects the principles of the provision of Universal Declaration of Human Rights? This is where there may be slight confusion, but if you trust me, the answer to this question would be D, 1, 2, and 3. Everything, whether it is preamble, DPSP, fundamental duties, all of them reflect the principles of United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Let's look at, in India, legal services authorities provide free legal services to which of the following types of citizens? Number 1, a person with annual income of less than 1 lakh. Yes. These two are not specified. All senior citizens, yes. So D, 1 and 4 is the correct answer. So when we look at polity, for example, 17 questions were asked from Indian polity. All of them were very easy or with moderate level of difficulty. I'm sure every student of ours would have marked all these questions correctly. I'll pass over now to Mr. Rohit Kumar, our senior faculty for history, and he is going to discuss all the questions related to history as well as international relations. Just give us 1 minute. Rohit sir will come before you soon.
Hello everyone, thank you Shamad sir, and now I'll discuss all the questions regarding or related to history. Now, if you look at the questions of history there were 20 questions as far as history was concerned. And out of these 20, if you look at the division, 10 questions were from modern, 5 were from art and culture, 3 was from ancient, 2 questions were from medieval, and we will start with modern. And as sir has already said that I'll be discussing the questions related to IR also. So let's begin with the modern questions, the questions of modern. Now, if you look at the first question that I have taken as far as your modern is concerned, sorry guys, just 1 second. Now, if you look at the questions of modern, the first question that I am taking is question number 62 of your set C. And here if you see, in the context of Indian history, the Rakhmabai case of 1884 revolved around. Now guys, if you see, Rakhmabai case, this lady's name you may not have heard, but if you look at the options, option number 1 says women's right to gain education, option 2 says age of consent, and option C says restitution of conjugal rights. Now, this question, if you just look, the name becomes a tough question, but if you look at the options, it becomes easy question. Why it's easy? Because the women's right to gain education is something that was there way earlier than this. If you recall, in your socio-religious reform movements, we have talked about leaders like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who have started so many schools. If you talk about education chapter, we have talked about Wood's Dispatch, where they have talked about the education for the girls. So the moment 1 is incorrect, the only answer is B. And here also, age of consent. Remember, this bill had come in 1891, and if you all remember, this has been studied where it is told that Bal Gangadhar Tilak had opposed this particular bill. Overall, not a tough question, not an easy question. I'll put it in the medium segment. Answer is B. Look at question number 63. Indigo cultivation in India declined by the beginning of the 20th century because. Now here, there might be some confusion in some of the minds, but overall, I have put this question as an easy question. Why I say it easy? See, indigo cultivation, one indigo revolt you would have studied when it happened in 1859-60, and another indigo related revolt you have studied, the Champaran Satyagraha. During Champaran Satyagraha, guys, you can remember that one of the reasons why the planters were leaving, because the German synthetic dyes had been discovered. So option B, its unprofitability in the world market because of the new inventions made it being used less as far as the world was concerned. Some people may have got confused with the fact that national leaders' opposition to the cultivation of indigo, because they may have thought Gandhi was there, Rajendra Prasad was there, Narhari Parikh was there in 1917, your Champaran Satyagraha, but that's not the answer. Similarly, the peasant resistance to the oppressive conduct of planter, that's not the reason. The best answer and the only answer to this question is B. Overall, an easy question. Moving further, Wellesley established the Fort William College at Calcutta because, now guys, if you all remember, 2018, we had 3 questions from education chapter. And already they had asked almost every college of those days. They had asked about your Sanskrit College, Calcutta Madrasa. So within 2 years, again asking such a question, it's slightly an exaggeration from the UPSC's perspective regarding this chapter. But then this was an easy question, and I don't mind any easy question. The thing is, he wanted to train British civilians to administrative purpose in India. And you have studied it in the education chapter that later this college was shifted to London, Haileybury, and there this had continued. So answer to this is D. I would put it as an easy question. Next question, 65. With reference to the history of India, Ulgulan or the Great Tumult is the description of which of the following events? Guys, very easy question. There is no doubt the great Birsa Munda, those friends of ours who have joined from Jharkhand, the god of Jharkhand, Birsa Munda's revolt of 1899-1900 is the Ulgulan revolt. Easy question, not a doubt about that. Question 71. Now, with reference to the history of India, consider the following pairs. Orang, in charge of Treasury of the State. Banyan, Indian agent of the East Indian Company. Mirasidar, designated revenue payer to the state. Tough question. Guys, at this moment, I'll tell you, we are saying the best answer to this question is 2 and 3. Because if you look at this particular term, number one, I'll tell you, we haven't got much detail about this. This is slightly a Persian term, which might be indicating towards a place where the goods are stored. Orang is 99% wrong. But of course, UPSC may come up with anything. But at this moment, I would go ahead with 2 and 3. If you look at the second and the third term, Banyan, those Indian agents of the East India Company, they were referred to this. For example, your Devindranath Tagore, at times they have been referred with this particular term. And Mirsidar in South India, these were the designated, revenue payers who had been appointed by the East India Company. This is a term which many of you would have heard. So I personally think that this question, people would have been able to eliminate option A. Apart from that, because 3 is everywhere present, and most of these two terms, Orang and Banyan, these two terms, many of the people may not have heard. I have put it as a tough question, but then right now the answer to this is B. And 99%, I'm sure that this answer would remain B only. But 1%, we can always leave it to the UPSC. Look at question number 73. Which of the following statements correctly explains the impact of Industrial Revolution on India during the first half of the 19th century? Guys, very clearly they have said first half of 19th century, 1800s to 1850 they are talking about. And if you see here, Industrial Revolution, Indian handicrafts were ruined. Easy. They have ruined because now they want to bring their products in India. They want to sell their products which they are producing in large numbers in Manchester, and they want to sell it over here. If you look at others, machines were introduced in the Indian textile industry in large numbers. We know they never liked the industrialization to happen as it happened in their country. So it's a wrong option. Railway lines were led in many parts of the country. Don't get confused. The first railway line came only in 1853. So that's wrong because it's talking about the first half of 19th century. Last, heavy duties were imposed on the imports of British manufacturers. No, the colonial administration was always there to help the Britishers. Answer is A, easy question. Moving ahead. 76, with reference to the book Deshar Kath written by Shankaran Ganesh Deuskar during the freedom struggle, consider the following statements. Now guys, I would say a very, very tough question. Now, because most of the times we don't hear about this particular name. Number 2, here also they are asking about a particular book. And here the answer is A, 1 and 2. And why we have basically declined this point number 3? Because the use of Desh by Deuskar was in specific context of the region of Bengal. No, according to our research that we did, this was not only limited to the region of Bengal, but was limited or was for the whole country. So your C or the third option was wrong. The moment third is wrong, this is done. And the two statements that are there, these two remain. Your 1 and 2, A is the correct answer. Overall, tough question. Moving ahead, the Gandhi-Irwin Pact included which of the following? Invitation to the Congress to participate in the Roundtable Conference. Of course, that's a correct statement. That has to happen. That means 1 is correct. That means 3 and D, the C and D are wrong. Now, we only have to think about 2 and 4. Guys, Gandhi-Irwin Pact on 5th March 1931, this was signed. Gandhi and all other Congress leaders were released after your civil disobedience movement had run for around 10 months and they had been released. Gandhi had talked. And guys, this particular pact became controversial for the reason that Gandhi was not able to secure the release of Bhagat Singh, who had been arrested in the Lahore conspiracy case. So if you look at this particular 4 options, the thing is, release of only those prisoners who were not charged with the violence. This is a correct statement. That means 1 and 4 has to be in the answer. Answer would be B. Easy question. No doubt about this. Moving ahead. 78. The Vittal with Vinashak, the first monthly journal to have untouchable people as its target audience, was published by. Now, usually, if we look at the press chapters or if we look at the socio-religious reform movements chapter, this name is slightly unheard. If you look at the 3 options, Jyotiba Phule is known, Gandhiji is known, and Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar is known. And if you look at the options, like for example, Jyotiba Phule, he was one of the first to write about the exploitation that was happening to the Dalits. But the books that he wrote, like Gulamgiri, Sarvajanik Satya Dharma, they have never been talked. We haven't talked about this particular book, Vittal with Vinashak. So here the thing was that this particular book was written against the Brahminical hegemony that was going on in the society. The answer to this question is Gopal Baba Valangar. and Valankar, and I would say overall slightly tough to medium level question, guys, because it depends how are you eliminating. All of you would have studied about these names, and in all these names you would have never heard about, let's say, this particular book. For example, if you talk about Gandhiji, he brings his journal Harijan. So I think this question is slightly a question which requires a bit of elimination, and if you could do elimination, and if you could do a smart guessing, you would have come to this. Gopal Krishna also he was known as, and this is your answer. Moving ahead, 84. Now, one of the most controversial questions, guys, this year. One common agreement between Gandhism and Marxism. Now, guys, if you see, presently we have gone ahead with the answer A, and slight confusion that we have here, and of course the final answer, the jury is UPSC. There might be some confusion with D. We would go ahead with A as the answer right now, because see, class struggle, Gandhi, if you see, Bipin Chandra has clearly talked about the differences of Gandhi and Nehru with regards to the class struggle. So there cannot be this. At the same time, abolition of private property, this is something that Gandhi has never talked about. In fact, if you see that Gandhi was at times has been accused of being very friendly with the bourgeois class. So this cannot be the answer. The answer should be either A or D. The only thing that goes against Gandhi at times might be that people may say that how can Gandhi talk about a stateless society? But presently, if you look at this moment, we would be inclined towards A as the answer. Maybe D might be the answer, but the final answer would be dependent on your UPSC key. So these were the questions that came from modern. Let's move towards your ancient. With reference to the period of Gupta dynasty in ancient India, the towns Ghantasala, Kadura and Chaul were well known as. Now guys, see, you all know that your Gupta dynasty was known as the golden age as far as India was concerned. One of the reasons why it was the golden age, because there was a lot of money. For example, we did the trade with the Romans, and Romans used to bring their goods to the various ports of our country. If you look, for example, Chaul was a western port, Kadura, Ghantasala, they were the eastern ports in Andhra and all. So the best answer and the only answer to this is A, the ports handling the foreign trade. So your answer to this question is none other than A. With reference to the history of India, the terms Kulyavapa and Dronavapa denote. Now guys, the answer to this is measurement of land. And I'll tell you one thing. This particular question was a tough question because guys, we have gone through the various sources, and in the traditional sources, this question is not dictated, not talked about. So it's slightly tough. Similarly, this question is also tough because the answer to this is measurement of land in the pre-Gupta periods and all those periods. Some elements have been talked, some inscriptions are there, some mentioning of this two terms is there, and it refers to the measurement of land. But then overall, again, it was something that was really, really tough question. So if you look ancient, 2 out of 3 is tough. And the third one, the last question, 80, who among the following rulers advised his subjects through this inscription? Now guys, do you think we would ever remember who has written what in an inscription? But then we always remember who writes a lot of inscriptions. And if you look at the content of this inscription, that whosoever praises his religious sect or blames other sects out of excessive devotion to his own sect with the view of glorifying his own sect, he rather injures his own sect very severely. If I were you and I was doing a smart guess, my guess wouldn't have gone beyond this great man Ashoka, who was so inspired by Buddhism. So I would be going ahead with Ashoka the Great. That's your answer to this particular question. 3 questions in ancient, and as always the trend has continued that this area has been posing or has been giving some very tough questions. 2 out of 3 tough. This, it depends on smart guess. I would call it easy to medium. Moving on to medieval, 2 questions were there in medieval also guys. Question number 74. Consider the following events in the history of India. Rise of Pratiharas under King Bhoja, establishment of Pallava power under Mahendravarman I, establishment of Chola power by Parantaka I, Pala dynasty founded by Gopala. Now guys, this particular question, if you see, This is more of, I would say, slightly a bit of guesswork, and slightly, if you see that, did you know about these dynasties or not? Because usually if you see about these kingdoms, when we talk about in the ancient as well as in the medieval, we have some references given, but exactly Parantaka, whether the establishment of Chola power happened under this period or not, that's slightly a guesswork. So here, the answer to this question is C, 2413. Overall, I would say easy question, not a tough question. Next one, guys. Which of the following phrases defines the nature of hundi generally referred to in the sources of post-Harsha period? Guys, easy question. C, a bill of exchange. This is a very easy question, because if you remember, hundi, this is an Indian thing where, this is something like a letter of credit. The businessmen used to keep it with them, and how much money has been given, who has given, what has been given. All those things would be mentioned under these documents. Overall, a easy question. Next question, guys. As I told you, 2 questions from medieval. Overall, easy question, not a tough question. Now, 5 questions came from art and culture. And if you look this year, art and culture, the first question, question number 7, with reference to the history of India, consider the following pairs. Now, they have given you 4 districts and they have given you 4 states. Now, my opinion here is that it's a tough question. Why? Because first of all, they want you to remember the old name of the present day towns. So, for example, Bhilsa, it's Vidisha. Now, first of all, you need to know where was Bhilsa. Overall, when we were discussing this, it looked as this was a history optional question earlier years when those map questions used to come in history optional. So, Vidisha, you all know, Madam Sushma Swaraj used to come from there as a MP. So, MP is correct. 1 is correct. So, 1 is correct. That means these 2 cannot be correct. And now you have to only look at these 2. Sthaneshwara. This is the easiest out of all these 4. This is Thaneshwar. This is in Haryana. This is wrong. The moment 4 is wrong, the only option correct is A. If you look at the others also, guys, your Dwar Samudra, it's not in Maharashtra, it's rather in Karnataka in the Hassan district. So the answer to this is A. But then the problem here would be that how do you remember the original names and then do you remember exactly which state they are? Tough question. Next question, guys, if you see here, they have given 3 terms. And again, we have always said that in art and culture, in ancient, in medieval, we need to refer or we need to remember the terms. They may ask you about the terms and their meanings. And if you see here, see, I'll start with the option D, Upasaka. The word comes from Upasak, a devotee, lay follower of Buddhism. 3 was a correct option. There was simply no doubt about 3. Now, if you look at the Parivajaka and the Shramana. Now, Shramana is a wrong thing here. The priest, he is not a priest with high status, and that's the place where it's wrong. Similarly, a Parivrajaka, renunciant and wanderer was a correct option. Now, this overall medium difficult because the terminologies is something that in art and culture you always keep on referring to. So your answer to this question becomes B. That's your second question of art and culture. The third one, with reference to cultural history of India, which one of the following is the correct description of the term paramitas? Now again, guys, if you see what they have been playing with us, they are giving us the terms and they are asking whether you know this particular term. And as you can see, the answer is mentioned here. The paramitas, they refer to anybody, the perfections whose attainment led to bodhisattva path. They are talking about the different virtues which we study under the Buddhism. And that's the answer to this question. The 61 is C. Moving ahead, question number 66. Now guys, this was an easy question for the simple reason, look at this. Amar Simha is associated with Harshvardhana. No, he is associated with your Chandragupta too. Out of your 9 Navratnas, 9 Ratnas, he is, one of the Chandragupta's 9 Ratnas. The moment you know that second is wrong, the only answer is 3. 3 only is correct. Kalidas was of course associated with Chandragupta too. So overall, easy question. Last, as far as 72 question number is concerned, with reference to the religious history of India, consider the following statements. Sthavirvadins belonged to Mahayana Buddhism. Lokottaravidin sect was an offshoot of Mahasangika sect of Buddhism. The deification of Buddha by Mahasangikas fostered the Mahayana Buddhism. Now, this is a wrong statement. I'm sorry here. This is a correct statement. The option 1 is a wrong statement because it was for the Hinayana Buddhism. So the moment 1 is wrong, you can see this and this becomes your wrong option. And if you see the option number 2, Lokottaravadin sect was an offshoot of Mahasanghika sect of Buddhism. This was a correct answer. So the option here is 2 and 3. B is correct answer. So guys, this was all from your history section. Now, there were 4 questions in the international relations segment. Which are those questions? Look at the first one. Question number 34. The value of Indo-Sri Lanka trade has consistently increased in the last decade. Guys, this is a tough question. Why it's a tough question? Because overall, this particular trade has kept on increasing barring 1 year. Now, you cannot remember each and every year. This is simply not possible for you to remember each and every year. So 1 was a wrong statement. If you look, textile and textile articles constitute an important item of trade between India and Bangladesh. Now, this is a correct statement for the simple reason, guys, because you all know that Bangladesh, their economy is dependent on textile. Almost 80% plus the GDP that it earns, it is from this particular area, textile and textile products. And if you look at the third thing, guys, this is wrong because not Nepal, but Bangladesh has been the largest trading partner of ours in the last, 5 years in South Asia. So 3 was wrong, only 2 was a correct statement. B is your answer. But I have said this is tough because how can we remember last 5 years trade data as far as Sri Lanka or, I would say Nepal is concerned, or even Bangladesh? 2 is okay. 2, everybody can guess. And the moment they guess, they will know C will not be the answer. But to guess 1 and 3 is slightly tough over here. Moving to the next question, guys. Question number 35. In which of the following groups all the 4 countries members of G20? Now, this is a factual question. If you remember the countries of G20, these are the 4 countries. And if you see, these are the countries which keep on opposing at times our permanent candidature as far as Argentina, Turkey are concerned. These all are in the G20. So they keep on coming in the news. Rest, in all this, there's definitely one country which is not in G20. So your answer to this is A. Again, a very factual question because it's tough to all the time remember who all are the 20 countries as far as the G20 is concerned. But then this was the answer. Next question. In India, why are some nuclear reactors kept under IAEA safeguards while others are not? Guys, we have studied your Indo-nuclear deal, US nuclear deal. The thing was that some of the sectors, the material, the nuclear material that we are importing from outside world, outside countries, they should be used for the peaceful purposes. And that's why some of your imported uranium and some use the domestic supply. So those which are being imported, they are to be used for the peaceful purposes. And this is the reason some of them are under this IAEA safeguards, others are not. So the answer to this is B. And the last question of IR was question number 100. Consider the following pairs: international agreement and the subject. Guys, Alma-Ata Declaration, this is a correct declaration. Talanoa Dialogue is a correct declaration. As far as the Hague Convention is concerned, it's not related to biological and chemical weapons. Neither is under 2 coalition related to your child rights. So overall, the answer to this question was C, 1 and 3. Now guys, if you see, 24 questions came from history and IR. 20 from history, 4 came from IR. The questions of IR were usually factual based. And as far as the history was concerned, there were some 7-8 easy questions out of the 20. Some were medium. I would call this year slightly tough with regards to ancient and art and culture. Medieval was okay. Modern was fine. 5 were easy. 1 or 2 were okayish question. 2, 3 were tough. But then it was not like polity, I would say. Polity was really a great 20 questions or 17 questions that had come. So now I would invite Mukesh Jha sir to continue with the discussion of environment and geography. So just give us 1 minute and I'll be handing over to Mukesh sir. Thank you.
Hello, a very warm good evening to all of you and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Now, this year, the paper for Geography and Environment and Ecology can be considered a bit on the tougher side. So what we shall be doing here is, we shall be looking at the various questions and we shall be looking at how we could reach the answer despite the fact that maybe, as goes with the UPSC and as is the trend with UPSC, many of the times we do not know many statements which are given in the options. Okay? So without further ado, let us begin and let us analyze the questions when it comes to geography and environment ecology. So, for geography, the first question that you had was dealing with fertigation as a concept. Now, what is fertigation? Fertigation is basically the technique by which you can apply fertilizers along with the normal irrigational method of maybe a drip or a sprinkler irrigation, whereby in small quantities you tend to fertilize the soil without undertaking flooding irrigation or without undertaking excessive amount of fertilizer dumping as well. So once we know that concept, then we had to understand what the different statements said about it. So the first statement was, controlling the alkalinity of irrigation water is possible. So that is very possible. Why? Because here you get a targeted application of fertilizers as well as nutrients. So you can more or less balance the nutrient availability as well as the nutrient mixture in the soil. Then the second option, efficient application of rock phosphate and all other phosphatic fertilizers is possible. So here the key was all other phosphatic fertilizers. And the reality is, many of the phosphatic fertilizers that you get, they are not soluble in water. So if any fertilizer is insoluble in water, you cannot apply it during the process of fertigation. So that makes this statement as incorrect. The third is, increased availability of nutrients to plant is possible, because here by this process we go for a targeted application of nutrients. So that is why this will be correct, and along with that it will also reduce the leaching of chemical nutrients which happens due to over irrigation or due to flooding irrigation. So this shall also be correct, and the answer that you will get is C, that is 1, 3 and 4. Now in this question, even if you knew that 2 was incorrect and you had no idea about rest of the other questions or the other options, you could still eliminate it and you could reach your answer. This was the specialty for geography this time. That maximum number of questions, they seem to be very tough on the let go. But then, if you would have tried through elimination method, then the job would have become considerably on the easier side. So as far as the difficulty standard of this question is concerned, it can easily be put into medium or a tough category, because many of us are not aware about what fertigation is. Many of us, we would not have studied about whether phosphate is soluble in water or not. So it can be put to medium or a tough category. Then, this was rather a tough question. So consider the following minerals, and we had to find out which one amongst them are considered to be major or minor minerals. So in this, you can only attempt this if you had some idea about what these minerals are. So what are minor minerals generally? So the government, under its official gadget and under the Mines and Minerals Act 1957, it tends to declare certain building materials, certain clay-like substances as minor minerals. So bentonite is one of those minerals which has a sort of clayey appearance. So it is a minor mineral. Rest 3 of them that you have, that is chromite, kyanite and sillimanite, all of them, they are important minerals which have ingredients of iron in case of chromite and aluminium in case of kyanite and sillimanite. So in India, which of the above is or are designated as major minerals? So the answer shall be 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so all these three are considered to be as the major minerals. Then, with reference to ocean mean temperature, which of the following statements is or are correct? So, the first statement, if you will look at it, OMT is measured up to a depth of 26 degrees C isotherm, which is 129 meters in the southwestern Indian Ocean during January to March. So this is a very factual statement, very factual even for geography optional as a subject. So just for the knowledge sake, this isotherm is created between 50 to 80 meters in case of Indian Ocean. So that makes the first statement as incorrect. Then after that, the second statement that you have, that is OMT collected during the month of January to March can be used in assessing whether the amount of rainfall in monsoon will be less or more than a certain long-term mean. So why during January to March? So that we can predict whether there is an El Nino condition which is building up or a La Nina conditionality which is going to increase the monsoon rainfall. So that is why ocean mean temperature gives us an idea about relative high pressure and low pressure which builds in the central part of Indian Ocean and eastern and western parts of Pacific Ocean, which tends to influence our monsoon. So this will be a correct statement and the answer shall be B. Overall, if you will consider, this shall be more on the tougher side because the first statement is not something that many of us come across, and even if we come across this statement in certain specialized books, then we do not remember the actual data. And this year in geography, UPSC has played with data, something that we saw in 2019 itself, but this year it was very apparent. So this can be considered on the tougher side. Then, with reference to chemical fertilizers in India, consider the following statement. So to this year's geography, you will also find major stress has been laid upon agriculture and minerals and industries, something which had hitherto been ignored for a long period of time in the paper for UPSC. But this year, there was a renewed prominence given to these chapters. So let us look at this question. At present, the retail price of chemical fertilizers is market driven and not administered by the government. It is market driven and not administered by government. So this statement is as wrong as it can be. It is not open to market forces. It has governmental interventions at all different levels. So the first statement is incorrect. So once you get that, immediately you will be able to eliminate two of the options. Now, look at the other options. Ammonia, which is an input of urea, is produced from natural gas. Again, true. Ammonia, what is ammonia? Ammonia is NH3. And ammonia production is increasingly dependent upon natural gas. So that makes the second statement as correct. The third statement. Sulfur, which is a raw material for phosphoric acid fertilizer, is a byproduct of oil refineries. Now, how do we attempt this? So, just let us apply a normal logic. Let us assume we have not studied or we do not know anything about the statement. So, when we talked about vehicular emissions during our revision classes, we talked about the fact that vehicular emissions give out sulfur dioxide. So sulfur dioxide is generated by the fuel which is burnt by these vehicles. So that means sulfur has to be present in oil as well. So that makes this part as correct. Right? Now, raw material for phosphoric acid fertilizer. So in this case, you have H2SO4, which is generally utilized for manufacture of phosphoric acid fertilizer, makes this statement as correct, and you have B, that is 2 and 3 as correct. It was Again, if I have to classify it, I'll put it on the moderate to a bit of an easier side, because you could use your logic, and once you eliminated option 1, then immediately your chances of getting it correct increased by almost 50%. Okay? Then, Chin Glacier is situated to the. This was rather expected as a question to be framed this year because of the prominence that the whole Aksai Chin region and the whole northern boundary with China, as it has remained pertinent in this year. So that is why this was more on the lines of expectations. So here you have different options. East of Aksai Chin. To the east of Aksai Chin, what do you have? You have the region of Tibet. So that will be incorrect. East of Leh again takes you outside the purview of Indian boundary. Then you have north of Gilgit. Now Gilgit in itself is situated pretty much to the northwestern extent of the original Jammu and Kashmir map that is there. So this will again be incorrect, and the correct answer will be the north of Nubra Valley. So in this, again, you could look at each of these locations and very logically, very easily, you could solve these. So this is one of those questions which I shall term as easy. Mind you, it is very difficult, and it was very difficult to find easy questions in this year's geography paper, but this was one of the easy ones. Then, consider the following statements. Again, as you can see, here again they are playing with data. So 36% of India's districts are classified as overexploited or critical by the Central Groundwater Authority. Now, the reality is the number is less. But let us consider we do not know what this number is. Let us keep this statement 1 on hold and let us move to statement 2. In statement 2, you get that CGWA was formed under the Environment Act. Now, this is a correct statement. So, if you make 2 as correct, look at all the options that you have. Immediately, you can eliminate A and immediately you can eliminate D. Now, then comes India has the largest area under groundwater irrigation in the whole world. Again, this is a correct statement. India leads China when it comes to the area under groundwater irrigation. The total area which is irrigated by groundwater. So this will again be correct. So the answer shall be 2 and 3 only. Again, this question you could have solved only if you would have applied your logic. You would not have lied below this 36% and not gotten confused by this. Then this question becomes on the easier to the moderate side. Then, again, one of those easy questions which appeared in this year's prelims examination for geography. Now, consider the following statements. The first statement. Jet streams occur in the northern hemisphere only. Why would it occur only in the northern hemisphere? When we know that there are 4 permanent jet streams in the world and 2 of them lie in the northern hemisphere, 2 of them lie in the southern hemisphere, that makes the first statement itself very incorrect. It is true, however, that the jet streams developed over the northern hemisphere, they have a much wavier pattern, they have much greater impact over the climate, but does not mean that the jet streams, they are not generated in the southern hemisphere. They are generated even there. So, now, the second statement. Only some cyclones develop an eye. So, eye of the cyclone. So, what is an eye of the cyclone and which type of cyclone generally generates an eye? So, you have a tropical cyclone which generally in the center, they will generate a heated up portion, a warmed up area which we call as the eye of the cyclone. In case of extratropical or temperate cyclones, more often than not, we do not find an eye. So that makes the second statement as the correct one, that only some cyclones, they tend to develop an eye. Now, The third statement, again related to the eye of cyclone. The temperature inside the eye of the cyclone is nearly 10 degrees C lesser than the surroundings. So, 10 degrees C lesser than the surroundings. First of all, whenever you find such type of data that 8 degrees C, 10 degrees C, there is no clear demarcation for the same. So, immediately beware of such kind of statements. Secondly, at the eye of the cyclone, there is generation of heat. Why? Due to latent heat of condensation. Right? Due to latent heat of condensation, you have generation of heat in the eye of the cyclone as well, which raises the temperature. So that is why the third statement will also be incorrect and the answer shall be C, that is 2 only, and it is one of the easiest questions that you will find for geography in this year. Then, what is or are the advantages of zero tillage in agriculture? So what is zero tillage? Zero tillage is when we are able to sow seeds of the upcoming crop without preparing the field, without tilling the field, or without undergoing through plowing rituals. So we leave the field as undisturbed, we drill the ground wherever seed has to be planted, and that is the process referred to as zero tillage. Now with that concept, if you have that concept, then let us look at the statements. So sowing of wheat is possible without burning the residue of previous crop. Now remember, while discussing about stubble burning, we did discuss about happy seeders as well, which is one of these processes. So this will be a correct statement. Then, without the need for nursery of rice saplings, direct planting of paddy seeds in the wet soil is possible. So why do we put these paddy seeds in the nursery first of all? That is to provide them with much needed moisture and temperature at the time of germination. Now if you undertake zero tillage, you do not have to go through and plow the soil. So that means the soil is going to retain some amount of moisture anyways. So that is what makes this statement as correct, that in case of zero tillage, you do not need to put the rice in another nursery and then generate a sapling. Then, carbon sequestration in soil is possible. How? So, this statement is correct. Why it is correct? That is because once you have zero tillage, you are not disturbing the soil. That will lead to a promotion and an increased growth of microorganisms as well and habitat underneath the whole ecosystem of soil. So that will lead to increased carbon sequestration and decreased emission of greenhouse gases in our surrounding atmosphere, and that makes all these statements as correct. Then, with reference to pulse production in India, consider the following statements. Now again, on the face of it, this is probably the toughest question because you need to know about the exact seasonality of the growth of pulses as well as the actual quantity which is grown. But again, apply logic, eliminate the options. Now, black gram can be cultivated as both Kharif and Rabi crop. That is true because most of the pulses, they have the ability to be grown as both Kharif and Rabi crops. So that statement becomes correct. Then the second statement is green gram alone accounts for nearly half of pulse production. Think about it. Green gram alone. So pulses are of many kinds. You have different kinds of grams like black gram, green gram, then you have other. There are different types of pulses. So green gram alone is not nearly around 50%. If you take the total gram production in the country, that is close to 40% of pulse production. So that makes the second statement as incorrect. Now look at the various options. Eliminate option number 2. What are you left with? If you eliminate option 2, you are left with one only, which should be or which will be the answer for this question. Okay, so on the face of it, it is very tough question, but if you apply logic here, then maybe it can be considered under moderately tough category, so to say. Then the crop is subtropical in nature. Here UPSC is asking about the type of crop. This is a type of question which UPSC has revisited after 2013 when it had asked a question regarding sugarcane. So a crop is subtropical in nature. Whenever you come across subtropical, immediately you can eliminate sugarcane because sugarcane is a tropical crop. A hard frost is injurious to it. So it requires at least 210 frost-free days and 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall. Now, if you have to consider rainfall, then both jute and tea, they end up requiring close to 150 centimeter of rainfall. So both of these will again be incorrect and the answer shall be directly A, cotton. This statement almost verbatim has been picked from NCERT. So again, this was directly from the book and will be or can be considered as an easy question. And if there is an option to consider very easy, this shall fit the bill very appropriately. Then, in the context of India, which of the following is or are considered to be practices of eco-friendly agriculture? And you have host of different practices. So, crop diversification, obviously it is eco-friendly. Then you have legume intensification. Why is it done? To increase the nitrogen content in the soil. So this will also be correct. Third is tensometer use. Why is it done? To ensure that over irrigation as a practice is not followed and adequate amount of soil moisture is present in the soil. And then you have vertical farming to utilize or to be able to utilize more more efficiently the amount of ground space available to the farmer in an eco-friendly way, which makes all these four statements as correct, and the answer will be D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay? Now, consider the following pairs and you have to match where a particular river empties in or where the mouth of a particular river lies in. So, the first, Mekong. Does Mekong flow into the Andaman Sea? No. Mekong actually enters the ocean further east of Andaman Sea near the large Mekong Delta which it makes near the country of Vietnam. So, this is incorrect. Okay? Then, eliminate the options which have 1 in them. Now, you are left with 3 and 4 only. Now, anyways, Thames, Irish Sea, again incorrect. Where does it empty into? It empties into North Sea. Right? Then, Volga in Caspian Sea is correct, and so is Zambezi in Indian Ocean. That is also correct, making C as the right option. Many of them, they got confused in Zambezi and Atlantic and Indian Ocean, but it flows into Indian Ocean. Okay, so again, I will put it moderately to easy level. Even if you had a preliminary idea of the map, this is something you could solve very easily. Okay, now after that, let us look at few of the questions when it comes to environment and ecology. Now, in environment, the first question. Now remember the species that we had discussed in our revision module. One of the species we discussed was about the Great Indian Bustard. So, with reference to India's Desert National Park, which of the following statements are correct? The first, it is spread over 2 districts. Absolutely correct. Which 2 districts? in the district of Jaisalmer and Barmer, there is the whole spread or the whole outreach of Desert National Park. So this is correct. Then there is no human habitation inside the park. So even though you might be tempted to think that the statement is correct, but it is grossly incorrect, because in the whole huge area, even though the density of population is less, but still lots and lots of people live in this area. So this will be an incorrect statement. Again, do one thing, eliminate 2 from all the options, look at what you get. You get 1 and 3 as the correct answer. So this will be again categorized under easier to moderate category. Now, among the following tiger reserves, which has got the largest area under critical tiger habitat? So in this you have 4 different options that are there, and in each one of them, mind you, the area is something we have to consider. So if you will consider the area of it, Sundarbans comes around to be somewhere close to 1699 square kilometer. And Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam comes to be close to around 2590 square kilometer. The above 2 are further lessened, so the answer here shall be C, that is Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam has the largest area under critical tiger reserve or critical tiger habitat. Then again a topic which we covered during the revision module. If a particular plant species is placed under Schedule 6 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, what is the implication of the same? So Schedule 6 of the Wildlife Protection Act includes certain plant species, like you have blue wanda, right? Then you have red wanda, then you have the pitcher plant, all of them. They are included under Schedule 6. So that basically means section or option B as the correct one. That is, such a plant cannot be cultivated under any circumstances. You cannot cultivate this type of plant freely, right? So this cannot be cultivated under any circumstances is actually the correct answer. So again, this was a very direct question and you had to be aware of Wildlife Protection Act. But then I can safely say with some amount of confidence that most of the students who would have actually attended the revision module of environment and ecology, you would have got this as the correct answer. Now, which one of the following statements best describes the term social cost of carbon? It is a measure in monetary value of what? So here you have long-term damage done by a ton of CO2 emissions in a given year. And this turns out to be the right answer. So it is basically in dollar terms, the total amount of harm and damage that has been done by 1 ton of CO2 emission. So that is what social cost of carbon is. Okay. Next, with reference to Indian elephants, consider the following statements. Again, elephant was going to be important this year because of the elephants which died in Kerala under very painful circumstances, as well as elephant deaths which happened in Okavango Delta in Africa. That made elephant very important species to be asked this year. Now, let us look at the different statements. First, leader of an elephant group is a female. That is very true. Most often, leaders are females who lead the group through dry seasons, through wet seasons in different parts of the country. The maximum gestation period can be 22 months. Again true, it can be close to around 19 to 22 months is how long the gestation period lasts. an elephant can normally go on calving till the age of 40 years only. Now, whenever you have the application of the word always, only, please beware of such wordings and such statements. So this statement is incorrect. Why? Because it goes on much beyond the age of 40 years as well. So that is why this statement is incorrect. Then, among the states in India, the highest elephant population is in Kerala. Again, this statement is incorrect. Where is the highest elephant population? It is actually in Karnataka. Right? So again, I would term this question as a tough one. Why? Because you needed to know about the population as well as the gestation period, till what age can an elephant undergo calving, something that we don't usually come across. So this will be a rather very difficult question, and the answer in this will be first and second as the correct statement. Okay? Next. Which of the following protected areas are located in Kaveri Basin? One of, again, moderate to easier questions. So, out of all these different options that you get, one of them, that is Papikonda National Park. This is situated along the basin of River Godavari. So, that will make the second statement as incorrect, while all the other statements are correct. So, Nagarhole National Park, Nagarhole, Bandipur, they are located on the two sides of River Kabini, which forms the very basis of the drainage system and a very important tributary of River Kaveri. So, Nagarhole will be right. Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve is again right. And then you have Wayanad Tiger or Wildlife Sanctuary very close to Nagarhole. So, that 1, 3 and 4 will be the correct option. If you would have to classify it, I'll put it moderately to tough because not many of us knew where Papikonda National Park is. Now, with reference to India's biodiversity, Ceylon frogmouth, coppersmith barbet, grey-chinned minivet and white-throated redstart are which of these? Now, the answer obviously in this case is birds. But how do we reach the answer birds, or how do we reach that option as birds? So basically what you get is, see, you cannot possibly in your wildest dreams be at a situation where you end up remembering each and every species that is out there. So in this case, you could only offer the wildest of the wild guesses. And one of the factors which could enable you to make a guess was the white-throated part. Mostly, you will see that when it comes to birds, their throat, in many of the species, that is a defining factor regarding what kind of bird species there is. Okay? So, this will be A or birds. Now, which one of the following protected areas is well known for the conservation of a subspecies of the Indian swarm deer Barasingha that thrives well on hard ground and is exclusively graminivorous? What is graminivorous? Graminivorous are those kind of animals who feed specially on the diet of grasses. So, which particular species is being talked about? Here, we are talking about Barasingha. And if you look at the various locations, the answer will be Kanha National Park. Now, why do I get at Kanha National Park? Because recently, Kanha National Park became the first tiger reserve in the country to declare a mascot. Now, it declared the mascot as Bhur Singh. Bhur Singh, the Barasingha. So, if you were aware of the fact that Kanha National Park had declared this as its mascot, so as to enhance its protection levels, then you could easily come at the solution of this. That it is Kanha National Park, which will be the answer. Okay. Now, which of the following are the most likely places to find the musk deer in its natural habitat? Musk deer is mostly found in mountainous or montane ecosystems. So, if you look at the various options, Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary, where is it situated? It is situated in Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand. Where in Uttarakhand? In a small hamleted area called Ascot, which is very near to Pithoragarh. So that is where Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary is situated. Then Gangotri National Park. Again, in the laps of the mighty Himalayas themselves, in both of these, you will end up finding the musk deer. Now, in Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary, which comes closer to the Tarai belt of Uttarakhand, there you do not end up finding musk deer. So this will be incorrect, and so will Manas National Park again be incorrect. The answer will be 1 and 2 only, and this was a tough question because Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary in itself is not a very known place, is not a very known protected area. So this is a tough question, and the answer in this case will be 1 and 2 only. Now, in rural road construction, the use of which of the following is preferred for ensuring environmental sustainability or to reduce carbon footprint? Which of these methodologies will tend to reduce the carbon footprint? So, if you consider all the different options, then look at option 4 and option 5 and concentrate upon that. So, in option 4, you get hot mix asphalt technology. Now, what does hot mix asphalt technology and Portland cement have common as a common factor in them? Now, both of them, they tend to absorb greater amount of sunlight, and that is something we studied under albedo. Now, when they will absorb greater amount of sunlight, that will significantly lead to raising of the temperature, and whenever temperature rises up, there is an implied increase of carbon footprint as well. So that is how you could eliminate options 4 and 5 completely. And if you end up eliminating them, then 3 of the options, major options, they are eliminated, and you get the answer, that is A, that is 1, 2 and 3. Okay. So that shall be all regarding geography and environment. If you have to summarize it all, then geography paper can be very leniently said to be non-conventional and a bit tough. Environment, on the other hand, was very logical and something that you could approach with logic and try to eliminate all the options. So that is why in case of geography and environment, again I will repeat the adage, it was not as easy as the case with polity, but then still you could do something with these different subjects. Okay, so that shall be all from my side. Next, I'll hand it over to Shyam sir, who shall take care of economy as a subject and who shall guide you further regarding this. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, good evening everyone. This is Shyam Kakur here. Let's start the discussion. Now, if you have seen the number of questions which are asked from Indian economy, the number of questions are very, very high. What about the difficulty part? Most of the questions were straightforward, simple. Some questions were difficult. They were picked up from various reports, so on and so forth. But if you have seen the various videos that we have provided, or even if you have attended the current affairs roundup that we have provided, most of the questions here and there, again not directly picked up from the question itself, but the discussion that we have had definitely will play the role in answering those particular questions. Let me start with the first one. In India, which of the following can be considered as a public investment in agriculture? Now, if you see the options that are given here, most of them are basically one or the other way. The government of India is providing the investment or assistance to the farmers or to the agriculture sector. So, fixing minimum support price, computerization of primary agriculture credit societies, social capital development, electricity supply to the farmers. In majority of the states, they are providing free of a cost. Waiver of agriculture loans in the last couple of years, this was also there in the newspaper. Setting up of cold storage facilities by the government. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of them are basically the investments that government of India is providing in the agriculture sector. So, right option will be option D. Next, what is the importance of the term interest coverage ratio of a firm in India? Now, why this was there? In the last couple of months, I am pretty sure you have heard of concept of a loan moratorium. In that particular context itself, this particular term was discussed, interest coverage ratio or ICR. Now, basically in case of interest coverage ratio, what we say is how much is the earning of a particular country. They use a term called as EBITDA. Should you mug it up? Not required, because anyways the exam is over now. Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. EBITDA divided by the interest payment. Basically this is referred to as a interest coverage ratio. Now, basic idea is how much money you have, how much money you have earned. Using that money, how much liabilities you have in terms of interest payment. Now, is it okay if I say that higher the ratio means what? Higher earning compared to the interest liabilities. So, higher the ratio, more comfortable situation that the company will be in. So, directly go to the third point here. Higher a borrowing firm's level of interest coverage ratio, worse is the ability to service its debt. Exactly opposite. The statement is exactly opposite to what we have established already. So, obviously third statement is wrong. So, you can just eliminate C and D straightforward. What is left out? 1 and 2. So, basically banks will use these particular ratios. Again, first let me tell you traditionally how they have used. Traditionally what we say is annually we will calculate this particular ratio and annually we will decide how much is the comfortable position of a particular company. But in this particular case, what UPSC has given is, he has given the present situation also and the future situation also. That is, presently, how comfortable is the company in terms of paying the interest, that is the first statement. And in the future also, if there is any liabilities in the future, how is the situation of a particular company. So, obviously only one is not available here. So, we will have to go with the 1 and 2, that is option A. Next, which of the following factors or policies were affecting the price in India in the recent past with respect to rice? This is with respect to rice. Now, in case of rice, again, apart from rice, Government of India announces a concept of a MSP, minimum support price, and 23 crops for which the MSP is announced. Government doesn't procure everything. The government basically focuses on two very important crops, rice and wheat. And in the last couple of years, this has been one of the contention between India as well as the developed economies, especially USA. There is a concept of a food subsidy or public stock holding, right? This has been one of the contentions. And please understand, Government of India pays a MSP. That is one reason why there is a variation in the supply of these particular rice commodity in the market. Government stocks, buffer stocks as well as the stocks for let's say supplying for a public distribution system. Consumer subsidies are provided. So, obviously 1, 3 and 4. These are the points which affect the price of the rice in the recent past. So, right option will be option B, 1, 3 and 4 only. Next, Kisan Credit Card Scheme, short-term credit support is given to farmers for which of the following purpose? Now, even if you have not read this particular scheme, if you have seen one point here, that is 0.5, I'll directly go to 0.5. Have a look at the statement there. Construction of family house and setting up a village cold storage facility. Look at the first part of the statement. Do you think Government of India will provide Kisan Card facility and bank will give you loan under the Kisan Card facility? Underline the term Kisan Card facility or Kisan Credit Card facility for construction of the house. Here is a hint. Do you think they will give you loan under Kisan Credit Card facility for construction of the house? Obviously no. So wherever 5 is there, simply eliminate it. So A is gone, C is gone and D is gone. What is left out? 1, 3 and 4 only. Now if you have read the scheme, if you have seen the objectives of scheme, all these are mentioned. That is 1, 2, 3, 1, 3 and 4. These are mentioned in the objectives of the scheme itself. So right option will be option B, 1, 3 and 4 only. Next question. Consider following statements. Straightforward question. If you have seen, we have discussed in the classroom also, in the TAB program also, in the crash course also, we have discussed this particular concept, WPI and CPI. In the last couple of months, definitely yes, these have been the point of discussion in the Indian economy. Because on one side, WPI was entering into a deflationary trend and CPI was inflating at 7%, 6.5%. So obviously, guaranteed there would be a question on this. We have discussed this and the question has already come. Now, weightage of food in consumer price index, CPI, is higher than that of WPI. Definitely yes. In case of CPI, food weightage, that is a food grouping as such, will carry a weightage of around 46%. Whereas in case of WPI, highest weightage has been given for manufactured commodities, not for food. So obviously first statement is correct. WPI does not capture the changes in the price of services which CPI does, and that is also correct. In case of a WPI, we consider 697 commodities. Whereas in case of a CPI, we consider goods also, we consider services also. So second statement, straightforward, correct. Reserve Bank of India has now adopted WPI as its key measure of inflation and decides changing the key policy rates. This is wrong. They use a term called as a nominal anchor. And if you have read about monetary policy framework agreement or inflation targeting, this will definitely be mentioned there. What is the idea there? Nominal anchor means what? RBI will decide, or Monetary Policy Committee will decide whether to keep the rates stagnant or stable, increase or decrease based on certain inflation rate. So which will be the inflation rate that they are going to take into consideration? Will it be WPI? Will it be CPI? Earlier, they used to take WPI as a nominal anchor. But there was a committee set up. This particular committee said, no, don't use a WPI, shift to CPI. And since that particular recommendation has been adopted, it is not a WPI, rather it is CPI. So third statement is wrong. First, second is correct. Right option will be option A, 1 and 2 only. Next is a question related to, again, concept of MSP only. Again and again, right, we have discussed this, even in the current affairs videos, everywhere we have discussed the concept of MSP. All you need to, or if you have understood this, simply understand the terms there. He says in the case of all cereals, underline the term all. Now understand this, MSP is announced for 23 crops, but do you think government will procure all the 23 crops? No, right? Government is focused on what? Rice and wheat. And do you think all the rice and wheat that is cultivated in India will be procured by the government? Obviously no. What about the pulses? Do you think everything that is produced is procured under MSP? No. Oil seeds, there is a problem with respect to oil seeds in India, right? So basically, first statement wrong. Focus on the term all, right? Obviously, government will not procure everything that is produced. So first statement is wrong. In the case of cereals and pulses, the MSP is fixed in any state or UT at a level to which the market prices will never rise. There is no guarantee. Please understand this. Yes, Government of India announces MSP and says, I want this particular MSP to be floor price in the market. That is, whatever is the market price should be above and over this particular MSP. But don't you think the market forces of supply and demand will determine what will be the market price? Is it okay? For example, what if there is too much of production of a certain commodity, agriculture commodity in this year? Do you think MSP will determine the market price? Absolutely no. It could be higher than what MSP has been decided by the government, or it could be lower than whatever has been decided by the government. In simple terms, what is the price of these particular commodities which are covered under MSP in market will be determined by the market. Government can only announce MSP, but various forces in the market will determine whether it will be higher than MSP or lower than MSP. So obviously second statement is also wrong. Right option will be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Next, straightforward question. Again, if you have studied about money market instruments, the question is on straightforward money market instruments. First and foremost, commercial paper is a short-term unsecured promissory note. Yes, this is a short-term, generally up to 1 year or less than 1 year, and these are unsecured instruments. That is, no collateral will be provided, no security is provided. First statement correct. Certificate of deposit is a long-term instrument. Look at the term long-term instrument. And in case of money market instruments, what you should remember? All these are short-term instruments. For example, call money rate, right? For example, repo, reverse repo. All these are what? Short-term instruments. And these are all part of what? Money market. So, certificate deposit, yes, it is a part of money market. But the moment he uses a long-term instrument, this particular statement will be wrong. Okay. Third, call money is a short-term finance used for interbank transactions. Definitely yes. Right. There is this particular concept of a MIBOR, Mumbai Interbank Offered Rate, and this particular MIBOR will determine what will be the rate of interest in the call money market. And in call money market, what will happen? One bank to another bank, lending and borrowing. Interbank lending and borrowing will take place in call money market. So third statement correct. Zero coupon bonds are interest bearing short-term bonds. Look at the term here. Don't you think the first part of the statement is opposite to second part of the statement? Zero coupon bond. What do you mean by zero coupon bond? The idea of a zero coupon bond is the coupon rate or interest rate is not provided on this. Generally, what happens in case of zero coupon bonds? These are issued by the government. In case of zero coupon bonds, if the face value is 100 rupee, the bonds are issued at a discount. Is it okay? If the face value is 100, the bonds are issued at a discount. And after the maturity period is over, the investor will be paid the face value. Is it okay? So interest rate is how much here? Interest rate is not mentioned. Right? That is the reason it is called as a zero coupon bond. Interest rate is not given because they are issued at a discount, redeemed at face value. Right? But anyways, zero coupon bonds, interest bearing short-term bonds issued by the scheduled commercial bank to corporations. Even this particular part of the statement is wrong. The zero coupon bonds are generally issued by the government. Okay. So first statement is correct. Third statement is correct. Option C is the right option here. Let me go to the next one. Straightforward question. With reference to foreign direct investment in India, which one of the following is considered its major characteristic? It is an investment through capital instrument, essentially in listed company. No. A foreign company, when it will invest in an Indian company, whether unlisted or listed, it can be considered as FDI. Again, you will have to remember Arvind Mayram Committee recommendation, which has been accepted by the government. In case of a listed company, minimum 10%, that is 10% and above is referred as EFDI. In case of unlisted company, any amount of investment done by a foreign company is referred as FDI. So first statement on the face of it is wrong. It is largely a non-debt creating capital flow. I'll come to this because this is the right option. I'll come to this. Let me eliminate the remaining two. It is the investment which involves a debt servicing. Related to second statement only. Just give me a second. It is an investment made by foreign institution investors in government securities. No. So let me combine B and C and tell you what is the basic idea there. What do you mean by debt servicing? Basic idea is this. Debt servicing means if you are a foreign investor, you have invested in India, you are expecting certain returns. You are expecting a certain amount to be paid to you. That is a basic idea for debt. Debt means what? Repayment liability exists. So when you are a foreign investor, you invest in India. Do you think the Indian government or Indian company has taken a loan here? I can understand logic there. You have invested. Investment is different. Debt is different. So when I say investment, right, there is no concept of a debt. Right. So basically, See, it is an investment which involves debt servicing. Wrong. It is largely non-debt creating capital flow. Means what? Investments will flow, but there is no corresponding debt outflow like this, right? So there is no repayment liability in simple terms. So option B is the right option here. Next, with reference to international trade of India at present, which of the following statements are correct? In the last couple of months, this was so much discussed in the newspapers, right? We have discussed this everywhere, even in YouTube videos we have discussed, in the classroom we have discussed. What is the basic idea here, right? While discussing, I told you, traditionally, India has been having a trade deficit. Traditionally, if you take last 10 years, for majority period of the time, India has been having a trade deficit. But from the fourth quarter of last fiscal, that is a quarter 4 financial year 21, what we have seen, there is a change in the trend. That is basically, rather than net importer, India became a net exporter. Again, I'll repeat it. Rather than being a net importer, India became a net exporter. And traditionally, in case of India, India's service exports have been higher than service imports. Now, based on these two information, just have a look at the statements here. Look at statement 3. India's exports of services are more than its imports of services. Yes, even today this particular statement holds true. Look at the first statement. India's merchandise exports are less than India's merchandise imports. If this question was, or this statement was given, let's say last year or 2 years ago, I would have simply said yes, absolutely correct. But because traditionally that is the situation. But have a look at the question here with reference to the international trade of India at present. At present, what is the situation at present? This particular statement is wrong. Is it okay? The first one is wrong. Have a look at this. India suffers from overall trade current account deficit. No, there is a trade surplus. There is a current account surplus. Again, not a very good situation for India, but that is the fact. That is there in case of Indian economy. So first one is wrong. Third one is correct. Fourth one is wrong. If you just have a look at the options given here, you will realize that it is just option C that suits the statement given here or the analysis that we have provided. So right option will be option C. Now West Texas Intermediate. This was also there in the discussion because the futures which are traded of West Texas Intermediate, or let me call it as WTI rather than repeating the statement again and again. So WTI futures entered into negative territory. That was a very big news. And that was there in the discussion, and we mentioned or discussed this particular statement even in the crash course. So basically the question was straightforward. If you have heard of this, which I think you have heard of it, the term West Texas Intermediate sometimes found in the news refers to grade of crude oil. Straightforward question, very easy. If you have read the newspaper even let's say for 2 or 3 weeks in the last 2 or 3 months, I'm pretty sure you have read about West Texas Intermediate. So right option will be option A. Next one, in the context of Indian economy, non-financial debt includes. Now, there is some dispute with respect to this. As far as our research is concerned, what we found out was basically option, right, that is the first statement is part of a non-financial debt. But again, some of the sources are saying that all 1, 2, 3 are correct. So again, in what context the UPSC has picked up the question, from which source they have picked up the question, based on that either it will be A or option D. Next, with reference to trade related investment measures, this is another area. I will tell you what is the issue with this question. Trade related investment measures, which of the following statements is or are correct? Now if you have read about TRIMS, you will know that this does not discuss services. It doesn't cover services. Is it okay? It doesn't cover services. So obviously, second statement which uses the term services is out of the window. But here comes a problem. Here is the next problem. Look at the third statement. They are not concerned with the regulation of the foreign investment. The idea of a trade related investment, here itself the idea is given there, or the concept is present here only. Trade related investment measures. Basically under TRIMS, again there is a GATT, there is a TRIPS and there is TRIMS. These are 3 very important agreements under WTO. Under TRIMS, what we basically try to do is regulate the idea of a foreign investment. More, again understand this, out of these 3 statements, first statement is more appropriate with respect to TRIMS. But here is a problem, there is no individual statement. That is, there is no option saying only one is correct. But anyways, we have given option B, assuming that right, because one is always clubbed with either 2 or 3 here. We are basically assuming that UPSC might give a key of option B. But again, here itself I am saying that there is some issue with this question also. Next, if the RBI decides to adopt an expansionist monetary policy, basically two measures. Either you will have to expand the money supply or contract. And in recent times, what RBI has done? Expanded the money supply. And based on that, he has asked a question, more of an analytical question. Now understand this, there are various tools which RBI can use, either to contract the money supply or expand the money supply. And the basic idea is, if RBI wants to expand the money supply, it has to cut, it has to reduce the rates. For example, reduce CRR, money supply we expect to increase. Again, I am saying expect. Reduce SLR, we expect money supply to increase. Reduce, let's say CRR, we expect, or repo rate, reverse repo rate, we expect the money supply to increase in the market. So based on this, he has given a question here. So obviously when he says cut and optimize the SLR, we expect the money supply to increase. Cut the bank rate and repo rate, we expect the money supply to increase. And when he says increase, so understand the logic there. If you cut, obviously money supply will increase. If you increase, money supply will decrease. So first statement, third statement are true. First statement for third statement are true, but the question is which of the following RBI will not do? So obviously second statement, it is the one which RBI will not do. So right option will be option B, 2 only. Next, with reference to Indian economy, after 1991 economic liberalization, consider the following statements. Again, this is a very tough question for a simple reason. These have been taken from various reports and we generally don't expect these kind of questions. But again, that is the unpredictability of a public service commission here. So worker productivity, rupee per worker at 2004 and 5 prices increased in urban areas while decreased in rural areas. Again, as per our research shows, it is correct. The percentage share of rural areas in the workforce steadily increased. Yes, this is correct. Third and fourth, right, we have not been able to verify, or let's say these are wrong statements. So 1 and 2, option A is the right option here. Consider following statements. In terms of a short-term credit delivery to the agriculture sector, district central cooperative banks, DCCBs, deliver more credit in comparison to scheduled commercial banks and regional rural banks. This is the key for me. Right? Yes, DCCBs, that is cooperative banks. If you see the structure, DCCB is a part of the cooperative banking structure. Yes, DCCB plays a very important role in ensuring there is a credit to the agriculture sector. But do you really think DCCB will be lending more than scheduled commercial banks for agriculture sector in India? That is a problem here. So first statement, wrong. One of the most important functions of a DCCBs is to provide funds to the primary agriculture credit societies. If you see the structure, the triple tier structure or 3-tier structure, middle will be DCCB and below this there will be PAC, Primary Agriculture Cooperative Society. So obviously this particular statement is true. Second statement is true. First one is wrong. Right option is option B, 2 only. In India, the term public key infrastructure is used in the context of a straightforward question, digital security infrastructure. Now, what is this idea? Basically, it discusses the policies, the infrastructure, the software that the government of India should establish or anybody should keep it in place in order to secure or issue the digital certificates. Digital infrastructure related question. Straightforward question, digital security infrastructure. Option A is the right option here. 59th, if another global financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following actions or policies are most likely, underline the term, are most likely to give some immunity to India? So understand this, if there is a crisis, what generally happens is the foreign investments, especially the investments in the financial market, that is FIIs or FPIs, what they do is they generally start withdrawing the funds from Indian market, start moving out of India. This will create certain volatility in the Indian market. So how do you reduce this kind of a volatility? How will India protect itself from these kind of crashes in the market? Do not depend on short-term foreign borrowings, right? Reduce your dependency on that. Open up more and more foreign banks in India. These are the two ways. Maintaining full capital account convertibility. Basically, in the capital account, there is a concept of FPI. That is our concern here. FPI is a part of the capital account itself. Without having full convertibility itself, there is so much of volatility that FPI will create in the market. Now imagine full convertibility is provided in the capital market also. That will, right, whenever the global financial crisis will happen, will wreak havoc or will create huge amount of problems for Indian market. So based on that, we are saying not third one, first and second, option B is the right option here. Okay. If you withdraw 1 lakh rupees in cash from your demand deposit account at your bank, the immediate effect on the aggregate money supply in the economy will be. Very tricky question, right? But if you have studied about monetary aggregates, this is not very difficult. Because if you have studied M0, M1, M2, M3, M4, you will realize that the M3, which is a broad money, that is money which has a lower liquidity and higher liquidity in the market, will consist of cash that is held by the public, demand deposits that are there with the bank, and term deposits or time deposits that are there with the bank. Now in the statement he says, you are withdrawing the money, you are withdrawing 1 lakh rupees from your demand deposit. Basically means what? If you see M3, I told you M3 consists of what? Cash held by the public, demand deposits plus the time deposits. So he's saying 1 lakh rupees is withdrawn from here, but 1 lakh rupees withdrawn, it will add to the cash. So there is no change in the money supply here. So right option will be, it will leave the monetary aggregates unchanged. It will not change the money supply in the market. Answer D is the right answer here. Gold tranche, straightforward question. This is basically related to IMF. In case of IMF, please understand this, or in case of India, we generally say that RBI maintains the forex reserves. Is it okay? RBI maintains forex reserves. And what are the components of forex reserves and why this question has been asked? For a simple reason, India's forex reserves have kept on ballooning in recent times. $400 billion, $450 billion, $460 billion. That is the precise reason this question has been asked. So in the forex reserve, what are the components? Components are four. One is the foreign currency assets. Second one is STR, special drawing rights at IMF. Third one is gold reserves, and the fourth one is reverse tranche. Basically a facility that is available for India to reverse or to withdraw money from IMF, to borrow money from IMF. So basically he says a gold tranche, reserve tranche refers to, straightforward question, it is basically related to IMF. So that will be option D, a credit system granted by IMF to its members. So option D is the right option here. Okay, so that's it from my side. Now, the next discussion will be related to science and technology. That will be handled by Mr. Raseshwar. I'll hand over the mic to him. Just wait for a couple of seconds.
Good evening everyone, and I'm going to begin with the science and technology portion now. So if you look at the science and tech questions that have come today, this has been one part that has been difficult. Difficult for two reasons. One, that a lot of static areas have been asked, a lot of good conceptual questions have been asked, and secondly, even if they have asked current affairs, they have not asked current affairs from last, let's say 9 to 12 months of time, but rather they have gone beyond that, and there have been a significant number of questions that have come which were perhaps not there in the news significantly in last 1.5 years. So that's what makes this part of the question paper that came today a little difficult as compared to the other portions. So let's have a look at all the questions that had come. The only silver lining that I would say for the science and technology portion was that if you are able to look at the questions smartly and the options that have been given smartly, most of the questions still can be resolved. Most of the questions can be very easily taken care of. So let's have a look at all the questions that had come in the field of science and tech. So the first question that I see here is on the basis of National Biofuel Policy. So now the question that has come basically is, on the basis of National Biofuel Policy, which of the following can be used? Now, this looks like a factual question and you might feel that this becomes a difficult question because it is factual, but not exactly. Because if you look at the kinds of, when we talk about the raw material that can be used, think of the kind of raw material that you may use. First of all, you know that something which is sugary has to be used. So that's one. Then second, when you look at the options, there are two options which can be eliminated very easily from here. So look at option number 3 and option number 4, the statement 3 and 4, these two cannot be a part of that. And even if you look at the list that was provided, the list does not have this name. So that's why these are the two options which can be eliminated. So if I look at the options, what do you see? 3 and 4 is here, here and here. I am left out with only one single option, and that's why here the correct answer will be A. So most importantly, why you have to look at the things is, when you look at cassava, why important? Because it can be grown in areas which are drought prone also. So that's why the National Biofuel Policy had this name. And then after that, the things like damaged wheat, rotten potato, sugar beet, all these are sources from where biofuels can very easily be generated, and that's why these were also the names that were there. But 3 and 4, they were missing. So that's why the answer will be A. Then after that, when we come to question number 18, so look at question number 18. This is with respect to solar water pump. Now here, when you look at the options that have been given, what you see is, first of all, this is one question that I would say was not an easy question to solve, but look at the things that have been written. First says that it can be used for running surface pump, not for submersible pumps. That's not true, because if you talk about the submersible pumps, these are the ones when you have to go underwater, and there you have to use it. So if it is not going well beyond the depth of water, then in that case it can be used. So there is a possibility of being used. So that's why this is wrong, right? This is wrong. So this is gone, this is gone. Then look at the second one. Solar power can be used for running centrifugal pumps and not the ones with piston. It's just the opposite of what would happen. If you talk about centrifugal pumps, what are centrifugal pumps? The ones which will run at high speeds. They would need high speeds to run properly. And if they don't have high speeds, think of solar energy. Solar energy is something that you cannot rely for high energy content all the time because of the weather conditions and all the atmospheric conditions, etc. So that's why centrifugal pumps cannot be. So again, one question that you can try to understand conceptually and you'll be able to solve it. So that's why this is again a wrong statement. So neither 1 nor 2 is correct. So both of the statements are wrong when it comes to question number 18. Then question number 19, one of the most difficult questions perhaps which has come in this year's paper. When you talk about the cultivation of sugarcane in India, consider the following statements. Now here what happens is, in these kind of questions, it's almost impossible for you to know about each and every statement that has been given. So that's why you also have to understand how to eliminate the options that we have. The first thing is, a substantial saving in seed material is made when bud chip seedlings are raised in nursery and transplanted in the main field. This is correct. This is something that has been in news also, because many of the farmers started to move towards it. So that's why this was in news. So 1 is correct. So 1 I have here and here. So you are left with what? Either 1 and 2 or 1 and 4. So 3 does not matter for us. Then statement number 2 says when direct plantation of sets are done, germination percentage is better with single budded sets as compared to sets with many buds. There is nothing as such that we know of. We can hold on to this. Look at statement number 4. You have sugarcane can be cultivated using settings prepared from tissue culture, and this is true. There were some controversies with respect to this also, that instead of tissue culture we should use the bud chip settling. So that's why these two were in use together, and that's why statement number 4 is correct, and our answer will be C. So correct answer here will be C because of the fact that these two were actually in use. Even if you don't know what statement number 2 or 3 is, still you will be able to answer the question if you look at the statements that have been given properly and you relate it to the current affairs what was given. But still, I would say that this was one of the most difficult questions to answer when it comes to today's paper. Then you have about a question on steel slag. So when we talk about steel slag, first of all, you have been given construction of base road. This is correct. Then improvement of agricultural soil. Yes, correct, because of the fertilizers. For example, calcium oxide can be taken as an example. Then production of cement. Yes, the Portland cement can actually be prepared from here. And it's not only about the Portland cement, but it's also about the various things that are mixed with the cement. There also we can make the use of steel slag, and that's why all the 3 statements that have been given are correct. So the correct answer here will be 1, 2 and 3. Again, slightly difficult question, but yes, you have to look at the options. You may be able to get the correct answer. But again, if you know what is steel slag, then only you can proceed with this question. Otherwise, it becomes difficult for you. Then the next question that we have is on coal ash. And coal ash, again, it is something that has been constantly in news. It's not a current affairs news which came this year or last year. It has constantly been in news. So if you look at the options that we have, first of all, coal ash contains arsenic, lead, mercury. Yes, this is true. It contains these kind of heavy metals in it. Then you have coal-fired power plants release sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen into the environment. Yes, very, very true. And this is one of the most important statements that we have for ash. High ash content is observed in Indian coal, and this is also very true. We know this and we have read this about Indian coal whenever we have a discussion on it. So yes, this is also true, and that's why your correct answer will be option D. So a fairly easy question, I would say, as compared to most of the other questions that we have. Then you have the question on biochar. So when we talk about biochar, what do we have? It can be used as a part of the growing medium in vertical farming. Yes, you will see that when we talk about urban farming, we definitely have a mention of biochar there, and that's why this is a correct statement. Then after that you have when biochar is a part of growing medium, it promotes the growth of nitrogen fixing microorganisms. This is also true. The role of legumes comes into the picture, and then biochar is a part of growing medium. When it is a part of growing medium, it tends to retain water for a longer time, and this is also true because this is based on charcoal, and you will see that if you look at the properties, you will find that yes, water retention properties are also there. So that's why this is also a correct statement. So the correct answer here again will be D. So all the 3 statements are correct with respect to biochar, and again this has been something which was in news for various reasons, not only last year but has been for a long time. So again, something which has been taken from agriculture. A lot of agriculture questions anyway has come today. If you look at even economy or geography also, you'll see that these questions have come. Then in India, under cyber insurance for individuals, which of the following benefits are generally covered in addition to payment for the loss of funds and other benefits? So first of all, when you look at the options, cost of restoration of computer in case of malware, yes, we can hold on to this. So you have one in these 3 statements. Then after that, cost of a new computer if some miscreant willfully damages it. See, this is something, even if you don't know about this question of whether or not this is a correct option, willful damages. In case of most of the insurances that we talk about, willful damages cannot be covered. Most of the times won't be covered. So that's why this is something that can make this statement wrong. Even if you don't know about it, this is something that makes it wrong. So if you look at the statements now, 2 is here, 2 is here and 2 is here. We are left with only B. So even if you don't know about the others, just one option eliminates all the other options which are wrong, and the correct answer that we have is 1, 3 and 4. Then we have the next question, and this is with respect to carbon nanotubes. Now when we talk about carbon nanotubes, first of all, they can be used as carrier of drugs and antigens in the human body. This is correct, and this is something that has been in news because of the Nobel Prize also that was given for this particular thing, something like the creation of a molecular machine. If you go back to Nobel Prize, I think of 2016, this was given for this particular reason. But we know that carbon nanotubes and other nanoparticles can be used for this particular thing. So that's why this is a correct option. Then if you look at statement number 2, they can be made into artificial blood capillaries for injured part of human body. Yes, this is also true. So this again, I mean, has been, if you look at the various properties that carbon nanotubes have, so based on those properties, you will understand that it is possible that we will be able to do this. Then they can be used in biochemical sensors. They can be used, and again, when you talk about biochemical sensors, what is biochemical? What is anything related to biochemical? When you apply chemistry to biology, right? When you apply chemistry to anything related to biological processes. So yes, it can be used as a biochemical sensor, and that's why if you look at statement number 2 and 3, they are quite similar to one another. So that's why even if you have to take an intelligent guess, you might understand that option number 3 also is correct. So if you look at 1, 2 and 3, if 1, 2 and 3 are correct, we are left with only one option, that is statement number D. Problem actually is with this part. Statement number 4, when it says that carbon nanotubes are biodegradable. Now it again goes back to the definition of biodegradable. How do you define something being biodegradable? So normally we say that something that can be broken up naturally could be called as biodegradable. So if you talk about carbon nanotube structures, these are very stable structures. So if these are stable structures, perhaps they should not break up. Naturally, they should not degrade, and that's why we may say that they are not biodegradable, but there are processes, there are various ways in which we can make carbon nanotubes to be biodegradable. So that's why actually statement number 4 was the most difficult statement that was given for this question. But ultimately what is happening is that if you know about these 3, the question gets solved there. So that's why even if you are confused with respect to whether or not it is biodegradable, still you will be able to mark the correct answer. So that's the whole thing about this particular question. So the correct answer, that's why, will be 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then after that, coming to the next question, question number 52 from set number C. Now 3 things have been given: spraying pesticides on crop field, inspecting the craters of active volcanoes, collecting breath samples from spouting whales for DNA analysis. Which of the, at the present level of technology, which of the above activities can be successfully carried out by using drones? Now this actually could have become a difficult question, because if you look at statement number 1, statement number 1 could be very easy for you to understand that yes, this should be there. So I have it here, here and here. So only B is eliminated for now. Then inspecting the craters of active volcanoes, yes, it can be carried out, and it's a simple logic. Even if you try to think of it logically, you'll get to this answer. So 1 and 2 should be correct. So I am done with this, I am done with this, but still these are the 2 options left. So we go to statement number 3, and this was a difficult statement, because collecting breath samples from spouting whales for DNA analysis, whether we are doing it or not with the help of drones, this is something which basically you may know as a fact or you may not know, and that's why this question becomes a difficult question to answer. The answer actually is yes, that it can be done, and we have seen that these kind of operations have been carried out by many researchers. I mean, even if you go to YouTube, there are many such videos that are present there where they are carrying out these kind of analysis, they are carrying out these kind of operations. So yes, statement number 3 also is correct. So correct answer here will be D, but of course a difficult question to answer because of statement number 3. You are not able to eliminate what could be a correct answer or a wrong answer. Then we have the next question. The experiment will employ a trio of spacecraft flying in formation in the shape of an equilateral triangle that has sides 1 million kilometers long with lasers shining between the craft. Right, so 1 million kilometers. This is something that is the most important keyword in this question. Now when we talk about this question, again this becomes a very difficult question, I would say. Why? Because there are three things which are very much connected to one another. You have something called as LISA, then you have something called as LISA Pathfinder, and then you have something which is called as ELISA. Now all these three experiments are very similar. These three projects are very similar to one another. So somebody who does not know the difference between the three, what happens is you are stuck between option number 3 and 4. And that's why this actually becomes again a very, very difficult question to answer, because 1 and 2 can be struck off very easily. We know that, okay, when you talk about this kind of a structure, this is not Voyager or New Horizons. They had completely different roles. But when it comes to statement number 3 and 4, that is C and D, this is where we can get confused. And when you talk about this, what happened is, I mean, if you look at the entire project of LISA, LISA Pathfinder and ELISA, what happened was that first of all, when you talk about LISA, this was supposed to be much bigger, almost in the range of, when we talk about these triangles, the sides of these triangles, they were supposed to be approximately 5 million kilometers, more than that. So that's why they were much bigger, even reduced to 2.5 million kilometers somewhere. They had tried this. Then LISA Pathfinder was much smaller, because this was an experiment. It was, in a way, we were trying to see whether or not something like this is possible. So it was much smaller. ELISA was something which was in the range of 1 million kilometers. This was something which was in the range of 1 million kilometers. So that's why the correct answer will be evolved LISA or ELISA. Another question actually had come in 2017 also on ELISA. They have again asked a question, but this time they have asked a fairly difficult question, because this is not something that is current affairs of today, but has been in news for a long time, but not widely covered by newspapers. So that's why this became a difficult question to answer, because you could get stuck between C and D. Then comes question number 54. Genetic changes can be introduced in the cell that produce eggs or sperms of a prospective parent. Second statement says a person's genome can be edited before birth at the early embryonic stage. And then the third statement says human-induced pluripotent stem cell can be injected into the embryo of a pig. So three statements you have. First of all, statement number 2 was actually in news. This was much more in news than statement number 1 and 3. So statement number 2 is correct. Unfortunately, again you have statement number 2 in 3 of the statements. Then coming to statement number 1, if you look at, genetic changes can be introduced in the cells that produce eggs or sperms of a prospective parent. Yes, it can be done. So statement number 1 is also correct. So again, we directly come to option number D. Still looking at option number D, you have human-induced pluripotent stem cells can be injected into embryo of pig. See, our key word is injected. Is it possible for us to inject a stem cell into another animal stem cell? Yes, it is possible for us. We don't know about the advantages or disadvantages of doing something like this, whether or not we will be successful, but we know that injection is possible. We will be able to do that. So that's why even statement number 3 is correct. So correct answer will be 1, 2 and 3. So again, not an easy question, by any margin. But yes, medium to difficult level question. It can be solved if you just look at the options and try to think about it logically. Then after that we have question number 55. So when you talk about this particular question, you again have 3 options given here. Look at option number 1. These vaccines are effective against pneumonia as well as meningitis and sepsis. Yes, this is correct. That it is effective against all these kind of, basically you are talking about a pneumococcal bacteria, and all these, when you talk about all these diseases, these are associated with this particular kind of bacteria. So yes, statement number 1 is correct. Then you have statement number 2, dependence on antibiotics that are not effective against drug resistant bacteria can be reduced. We'll hold on to this. Then look at statement number 3, these vaccines have no side effects. See, no. Whenever we see a statement which is so drastic, most of the times it is wrong. And this is the case here as well, that yes, there are certain side effects that are seen. For example, redness of skin, etc. All these kind of things can be observed in certain cases. So no side effects is wrong. So statement number 3 is wrong. So this is gone, this is gone. So still what happens is, whether or not you know about statement number 2 depends on whether or not you'll be able to solve the question. So if you look at statement number 2, you have dependence on antibiotics that are not effective against drug resistant bacteria can be reduced. And this is true when it comes to most of the vaccines that we use. In the case of vaccine, what happens is that vaccines are much better at fighting against diseases as compared to the antibiotics. So what happens is, the kind of resistance that overall over a period of time develops against antibiotics cannot develop against a vaccine. So that's why vaccine are much better in that case as compared to the antibiotics. So dependence on antibiotics which are not effective against drug resistant bacteria can be reduced using this particular vaccine. So that's why this is a correct statement, and the correct option will be 1 and 2 only. Then you have the next option, next question, and this perhaps is the most relaxing question of the entire science and technology portion. Very simple direct question based on the difference between plant and animal cells. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the general differences between plant and animal cell? First is, plant cells have a cellulose cell walls. This is very true, while animal cells do not. Yes, that's very true. I mean, if you go back to class 6th NCERT books, you'll see that these things have been mentioned. Plant cells do not have plasma membrane unlike animal membranes. We can hold on to this. Statement number 3, mature plant cell has one large vacuole. This is true, while animal cells have many small vacuoles. This is true. So when you talk about these two statements, I know that 1 and 3 are correct. So I have 1 and 3 here, I have 1 and 3 here. Then plant cells do not have a plasma membrane. This is very wrong. All the cells will have plasma membrane. So that's why this is something which is entirely wrong, and that's why we are left with 1 and 3 only. Statement number C for question number 57 is correct. Then question number 58, which of the following are the reasons or factors for exposure to benzene pollution? So when you look at benzene pollution, 1 is correct, 2 is correct. Many a times you will see that they are in news. And then after that, if you look at the other options also, so if you look at the options, you have 1 and 2 here, you have 1 and 2 here. So it depends on statement number 4 and 5 whether or not this is a correct. So whether A is correct or D is correct. So looking at statement number 4, using varnished wooden furniture, yes, benzene solution is there. Even talking about polyurethane, what happens is not only benzene but also toluene pollution is also associated with it. So that's why all the 5 options that we have here, all the 5 statements that we have here, all 5 are correct, and that's why correct answer for us will be D. Then coming to question number 67, in the context of recent advancements in reproductive technology, pro-nuclear transfer is used for. Now when we talk about this question, what happens is this has been again in news for more than 4-5 years now. If you have gone through the concept related to 3-parent baby, you will come across these kind of options there, I mean these kind of concepts there. So prevention of mitochondrial diseases in offspring is the correct answer here, because this is what the 3-parent baby is all about. So the correct answer here will be D for question number 67. Then you have question number 68. In the present state of development, artificial intelligence can effectively do which of the following? So which of the following can be done? Bring down electricity consumption in industrial units. Yes, it can be done. Then after that you have create meaningful short stories and songs. We can hold on to this. Disease diagnosis, yes, for sure. So if you look at 1 and 3, 1 and 3 are here, here and here. So only C is gone for now. Text to speech conversion, yes, it happens. So you come to this particular statement now, and even this is still left out. So we are left with statement number 5, wireless transmission of electrical energy. Yes, it can be done. And even creating meaningful short stories and songs, this is something that has been in process for quite some time. I mean, last couple of years you will see that there have been advancements that have been made in that manner also. So that's why all the 5 statements that have been given here are correct. So correct answer for us for 68th question will be D. Then coming to question number 69, with reference to visible light communication technology, which of the following statements are correct? First says VLC uses electromagnetic spectrum wavelength 375 to 780 nanometers. This is correct, although very factual, very tough statement for if you don't know what is the visible range. Because if you talk about the visible spectrum, this is the visible spectrum. This is the visible spectrum, so that's why this is a correct statement. Problem is that you might not know this as a direct statement. You might not know that this is the range that it is in. So that's why this can become a difficult statement. Statement number 2 says it is known as long range optical wireless communication. No. See, what happens with VLC or visible light communication is you might have heard of Li-Fi as a concept. So Li-Fi as a concept also makes the use of the same, but it is used for short range communication mainly. It's not used for long range communication. So that's why statement number 2 is wrong. Now the thing is, if you look at all the statements that have been given here, even if you don't know whether or not statement number 1 was correct, we definitely know that statement number 2 is wrong. So if statement number 2 is wrong, this is gone, and this is gone. What we are left with is 1, 3 and 4. Still looking at statement number 3, can transmit large amounts of data faster than Bluetooth? Yes, they can, because Li-Fi, which is faster than Wi-Fi, Fi-Fi, which is faster than Bluetooth in general. So that's why this is a correct statement. VLC has no electromagnetic interference. Yes, a correct statement again, and this is one of the advantages that we have with VLC. So that's why this is again a correct statement. So only statement number 2 is wrong. We are left with option C. So question number 69, correct answer is C. Then you have blockchain technology, a question related to the same. First of all, it is a public ledger that everyone can inspect, but which has no single control. This is a correct statement. Then structure and design of blockchain is such that the data in it are all about cryptocurrency. This is wrong. It's not all about cryptocurrency, because blockchain uses what? Any kind of cryptography, anything related to cryptography can perhaps be a part of blockchain. So that's why it's only about cryptocurrency is wrong. So that's why statement number 2 is wrong. So if 2 is wrong, this is gone and this is gone. So we are left with statement number 3. Statement number 3 says application that depend on basic features of blockchain can be developed without anybody's permission. This is again wrong. Permission, see what would happen, why this can become a very difficult question to answer could be on the basis of the fact that you may think that there is no central authority. So perhaps this is a statement which is correct, that there is no central authority, but this is not the thing. We are basically talking about the fact that there is a decentralization, but people will still be able to tell you or provide you permissions with respect to blockchain, and that's why this is something which can be said to be wrong. So that's why only statement that we are left with is A. So correct answer for question number 70 will be A. So that's why this question becomes difficult only because of the fact that statement number 3 has been given here. So that's why you have to remember that these questions, this question can be confusing for you if you look at that aspect. So overall talking about this paper, we see that yes, this was a difficult paper as compared to the other sections. The questions were not the questions that are asked normally every year. The questions were not picked from topics which are static or which are studied by the students, or the topics which were there in the newspapers. So that's why this became a difficult section to handle. But logically thinking about it, it could have become an easier paper for you, just that if you know certain concept, but overall a difficult paper as compared to the other sections. So this brings us to the end of the discussion that we had for the Prelims 2020 paper. Now, as Sarmat sir had already told you that we would want you to fill the form that we have given you in the description, so that we'll be able to come out with a cutoff scientifically when we know that there are lakhs of students who are filling up the form, and then we are calculating it from there, we are averaging it out from there. So we will be in a much better position to bring out the cutoff by tomorrow. So this is what we have been trying, and I hope that the paper went very well for you. Focus on the studies, start preparing for the mains examination, and all the best for your future. Thank you.